So there's not been quite a settlement quite yet in Scotland. So they have suspended strikes there based on discussions and negotiations on the new year's pay review, which will be from April. We're very keen to do the same. So negotiations are starting in terms of the 23 pay review. And so we were asking the RCN to do similar things, suspend strikes in England while those negotiations happen. In Wales, it's slightly different. They have come to an offer, which is 3%, 1.5% of that is an increase in pay, 1.5% is a lump sum payment. They're putting that to their members. That may be voted through, it may not. A higher offer was put to members in Scotland before Christmas, which was rejected. So we're all at various different stages of negotiations at the moment.
We spoke to the GMB union this morning, and they say they feel like they're being treated like second-class citizens because a modest pay offer, they say, would move the needle. Why isn't there been a modest pay offer? Because the government keep maintaining the line that the full 19% is unaffordable, but surely something in the middle is affordable.
Well, I think we feel that we've been through the process of the independent pay review body for this current year, and that came out at 4.5% for nurses and on the agenda for change pay scale, and then slightly higher for newer entries, around 8.9%. And that was an independent process the unions actually signed up to. They submitted their evidence, and when those figures were announced, they supported them at the time. And obviously, things have happened since then that they would like that reviewed. But we did agree to that figure collectively, and that's why we feel we need to now focus on this year's pay offer, which will be from April, which is literally weeks away.
Okay, but the deadline for that was the 11th of January. So have you submitted what you've been asked to for that?
We
NHS
haven't
pay
submitted
review?
yet.
And why is that? Because that's already weeks late.
Yeah, so it's not unusual. We don't always meet that deadline. And last year, actually, the pay review body announcement came out probably around the summertime and was backdated to the April. So that's quite a normal process. My concern is the unions are now saying that they're pulling out of that process completely themselves and won't submit evidence at all. And so that's going to be very difficult if we submit evidence and they don't. Will they agree to whatever the pay review body comes up with?
Why aren't you discussing things now?
Well, there are discussions. So the Secretary of State during January had almost weekly meetings with a range of unions.
On that point, because we checked in with Pat Cullen from the Royal College of Nursing, and she said she did meet with Steve Barclay, but he said he was willing to discuss anything but pay. That's the issue.
Well, that's not quite true, because before December...
That's what she says.
That was definitely the position, and hand on heart, the government said we'll talk about working conditions, but we're not reopening pay discussions. But since Christmas, the Secretary of State has been open to pay discussions because we want to move on and get the pay review for this forthcoming year open and settled as quickly as possible, because the sooner we can agree that, the sooner nurses and other healthcare professionals can get that pay rise as close to April as possible, because we recognise people need that in their pay packets now.
A lot of nurses have told us that they feel it wasn't that long ago they were being praised for risking their lives and saving the lives of others, and now they don't feel valued. Can you understand that point of view? Well,
they are absolutely valued. So
but they don't feel like that.
No, and absolutely.
Overwhelmingly.
We absolutely value staff, but we also have a responsibility to the wider taxpayer that if we gave inflation-busting pay rises, that has to be paid somehow. We all know about the cost of living for everyone at the moment, and for every 1% of a pay rise we give right now, that's about £700 million we've got to find from somewhere, and there is the danger that drives inflation further.
We spent quite a bit of time with a mum called Jordan who works as an occupational therapist in the NHS. Can I play you a question that she wanted to put to you? If you just press play on that video, you'll hear.
My name's Jordan and I work for the NHS, and I want to ask, after our sacrifices in the pandemic, why don't you think that NHS workers deserve a decent pay rise? And what will you do to stop NHS staff from leaving?
She's on the programme later as well. What would you say to Jordan and to the many other people who'll be watching you now and are worried about their future and are worried about some of those concerns that Jordan was raising?
Yeah, no, absolutely. I'm not asking any nurse or occupational therapist or physio to do things that I wasn't prepared to do when I was working full-time in the NHS. I worked on the COVID wards. I went back to the wards during the pandemic and I saw how hard everyone worked during that time. It was a really traumatic time for everyone, so absolutely recognise that. But before I was a nurse, I went through the pay freeze and the pay cap, which I campaigned against with the RCN when I first came into Parliament, and we reversed that. So I do understand how difficult it is, and that pay is a major factor in terms of one of the reasons why you stay in the job. We absolutely do think that nurses and all healthcare professionals deserve a pay rise. It is why we gave 4.8% this year. It went up to 8.9% for newly qualified staff on the Agenda for Change pay scale. And that's why we want to get the process for this year, so from April's pay rise, bottomed out as soon as possible, which will take into account things like inflation, so that we can get those pay rises to staff as quickly as possible. But we do need them to engage in the process to make that happen.
Appreciate your time. Thank you very much for talking to us.